Here are your Court News Ohio top stories in 5 minutes.
The Task Force on Access to Justice, a group chaired by former Justice Yvette McGee-Brown and tasked by Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor with identifying barriers to Ohio's civil justice system, has finalized its report to the Ohio Supreme Court. Among its findings, a decrease in legal aid funding at a time of increased demand, a need for standardized forms, and a lack of understanding among Ohioans about the role of attorneys, the judiciary, and organizations that may be available to provide assistance. There are 11 recommendations outlined in the report, including a general revenue allocation for civil legal aid, self-help centers for people who are serving as their own attorney, and creating an Access to Justice Director position at the Supreme Court to focus on programs and policy and rule changes.
I think that they made great recommendations. I think what I liked especially was the comparisons they've done with other states and what those access to justice efforts were in other states that we can, pick and choose and see if they can apply to Ohio.
Chief Justice O'Connor said the justices will now look closely at the report to determine what recommendations can be implemented right away and others that may require additional time to accomplish.
The Ohio Supreme Court on April 23rd ruled that juveniles have a right to counsel if they face possible confinement. The decision reversed a 5th District Court of Appeals judgment. The 4-3 decision came about after a man was sentenced to 3 years in prison for driving under the influence. He was charged with a felony instead of a misdemeanor because it was his 6th OVI conviction when the court counted a juvenile OVI offense. However, the Supreme Court said his juvenile conviction shouldn't have counted because as a teen, he had no attorney during the court proceedings and had not waived his right to counsel. The case goes back to the Fairfield County Municipal Court for resentencing.
The number of foreclosures declined in Ohio in 2014 for a 5th straight year, according to statistics released by the Ohio Supreme Court on April 16th. The more than 43,700 new filings in common pleas courts of residential, commercial, and tax foreclosure cases last year represented a decline of nearly 18% from 2013 and a decline of slightly more than 50% over 2009, when the state reached an all-time high of about 89,000 new filings. Cuyahoga, Hamilton, and Summit County, some of Ohio's largest populations, saw significant declines. The Supreme Court began collecting foreclosure caseload statistics from common pleas courts in 1990.
The Ohio Supreme Court on April 24th released the results of the February 2015 Ohio Bar Examination. Out of 411 applicants who sat for the exam, 262, or about 64%, received passing scores. Out of 202 first-time applicants, 72% received passing scores. A complete list of the successful applicants' names can be found on the Ohio Supreme Court's homepage. The oath of office will be administered to applicants who are successful on the examination and who have satisfied all of the Supreme Court's other requirements for admission during a special public session of the Supreme Court on Monday, May 4th at the Ohio Theater in Columbus.
It was an unusual sight to see costumed animal characters in the courtroom. More than 300 middle school students, some dressed as pigs and other farm animals, descended on the Thomas J. Moyer Ohio Judicial Center for the 3-day Ohio Center for Law-Related Education Middle School Mock Trial State Showcase. Teams from 24 middle schools across Ohio participated in the mock trial based on the classic novel Animal Farm. This year's case was a civil class action lawsuit brought by Benjamin on behalf of the non-pig animals that live on the farm that their civil rights were violated.
Counselor, I am a slave. I do work for those slothful pigs.
Logan Fryman, a 7th grader at Woodward Park Middle School in Columbus, was in character for the trial. He credits his classmates and his teacher for being rewarded by the judges as best witness.
We worked hard, and I owe it all to Mr. Rakow for pushing us and giving us high standards.
Hard work paid off for teammate Cyan Lattimore, who took home the Outstanding Attorney Award.
You had to learn about objections, the law, when to object, how to approach witnesses and judges.
Each team participated in 2 trials to argue both plaintiff and defense positions against opposing teams. Attorneys and judges served as showcase judges, giving students points for professional demeanor, oratory skills, and an understanding of trial technique and courtroom procedure.
That's a look at Court News Ohio's top stories. Visit courtnewsohio.gov for the latest headlines on Ohio's courts.